सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपात्तमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं। हरिः ओं श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओं। हरि ओं. So I was just thinking how when we start our session, we do a Shanti mantra, right? But here in the war scenario, what has happened? There is a great, huge, tumultuous sounding of the drums and the conches which happen, right? Why? Because over there it is more of rajasic alertness which is required, right? And in that alertness there is both sides of warriors who have come forth for this war, and in anticipation of the war, they are just restlessly waiting, be it the horses, be it the other cavalry, all of them are just waiting for this war to begin, because all the preparations that they have made, all the weapons that they have brought together, right, all this is for that one war to take place. And everyone was aware who it was who was involved in this war, who it is who are the main players in the war, yeah. And yet it is that Arjuna suddenly felt the need to go and see who are the ones who are going to be fighting with him. And over there, one more thing that he pointed out very clearly was, he said that, who are those who were influenced by the durbuddhis of the sons of Dhritarashtra, right? He was very clear that what they were doing, what Duryodhana and the rest of the Kauravas were doing, he was very clear that they are in the wrong and therefore we have to fight it, right? And yet now suddenly a change has come over him, and this change is it is visibly seen as he changes. Not that the war scene is changing in any way, but his mindset is going through phases as though, and it is as though like a domino effect, you might call, or a cascade, So it starts with one, it goes down, and it just keeps spiraling down. And this is something that most of us might see in a smaller scale. We might not see it in a war scenario, but we might see in our lives also in different ways, right? And what made this come about is his attachment, is the very thought, it is like when he went and he was facing Bhishma and Drona, the first thought was, oh, here is mine. They are mine and I am theirs, right? Ahamete mama esha, right? So from that it went down to, okay, they are mine, I feel for them, and then suddenly it comes down to complete sorrow for him. Oh, I will fight them, and this is going to lead to grief, not just for me but for them also. So in this way, as he runs through emotions, there is this character of Arjuna which is seen visibly for us through the verses that we see further. So here one thing is that this character analysis of Arjuna is not something of a person who is scared. It is of a courageous warrior who is fully equipped, and also he is not just equipped with his weapons. It is not just his alertness, etc., but also he has a lot of experience in the world. He has also read the Vedas. He has also come across various great teachers and has learned from each of them in the various arts, be it warfare, be it administration, be it any kind of you would say dharma shastra that he has to learn. So all this he has learned. So all this he has very clearly understood in life, and now he's as though he's facing himself rather than facing the opponents over here. And to get out of to get into that mindset where he is at a comfortable level. So here what has happened is that he knows that his charioteer as Krishna is there to guide him, and therefore he is able to voice all these concerns which are coming up in his mind. And this facing of his own emotions, right, and how these emotions are something that are something are obstacles in our path is what is being brought forward for us also. How one particular emotion can lead to that delusion, can lead to that moha, where that moha becomes so predominant, that delusion becomes so enveloping, encompassing, that I am not able to see the viveka between what is dharma and what is adharma, what is it that I should be doing and what it is that I should be avoiding completely, right? Whereas that was in play earlier, because earlier, right, in the 23rd verse itself, he had told that these are those durbuddhis who have listened, who have come under the influence of the Kauravas and are now facing us in battle. So I want to see who they are. How could they be so blind and come under the influence of Duryodhana, is what he was saying then. But now what has happened? So we'll just look at the verses, right? We had taken the verses 28 onwards. Let's read. So here he says, Kripaya parayavishtaha vishidantam idam abravit. So this is what Sanjay had said, and then Arjuna starts his banter. He says, Arjuna uvacha drishtvevam swajanam Krishna yuyutsum samupasthitam sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishishyati vepaduscha sharire me romaharshascha jayate gandivam sramsrate hastat tvakchaiva paridahyate na cha shaknomyavasthatum brahmativa cha me manaha. Right, and then he goes on to say, right, na kangshe vijayam. So before this, nimittani cha pashyami viparitani keshava na cha shreyo nupashyami hatva swajanamahave. So here when we are seeing this verse 29 onwards, 28 onwards, what is he telling? He is saying that, okay, having seen my opponents, suddenly what has happened? Some kind of weakness has overcome me. So the same person who had, held on to his bow and arrow and was ready and told Bhagwan that, go ahead, take the chariot right in, he had commanded Krishna. And here, as though his voice level has gone down in decibels, and he's telling his state, what has come upon him. And he says, Sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishishyati. Right? He is completely overcome by hysteria, and this is very obvious, right? Because from a parched throat to to horripilation on his skin, to feeling as though his entire body is under some kind of heat, right? And then next what he says, that even his weapons, they are as though slipping away from his hands, right? And then he says that I am unable to speak, I can't tell you what is going on in my mind, O Krishna, right? Because my mind is as though it is going in a whirlwind kind of. So here is this very confident person, warrior, who had started with a Veera Buddhi and gone down to Sneha, and then further suddenly gone to complete hysteria. It is like, when someone has come completely prepared and rehearsed for a play or for a speech, and then suddenly what happens? Suddenly looking at the crowd, one feels, oh, what am I going to do? I have it's as though a blackout has come suddenly, right? And he's not able to speak. So he as though looking for water. Oh, someone give me water. I'm going to fall down, right? So he becomes such a nervous wreck, and all through Krishna is only watching him. He's not saying anything, nor is he saying that, come, I will support you. He is neither offering him any kind of sympathy or empathy, nor is he telling him that strictly, come on, stop, what are you doing? No, he is just listening to him. He is letting him speak. The only thing that he told him earlier was, okay, you want to go and see everyone, see the opponents, come, let's go. Here everyone is, now you see. So that Pashya was as though more to see his own thoughts rather than the opponents, right? And then further, as we saw, what is it that is happening? One particular emotion that he picked up, and that was of attachment. Attachment to his kith and kin. That has as though overshadowed his discriminative power to act as per his dharma, act as per his swadharma. What is the swadharma here? That of a Kshatriya. That is to fight the war. And he is fully equipped for that. So why shouldn't he? He should fight the war. And yet here what has happened? He has forgotten what is his dharma, and instead he is going towards that which is not his dharma. So what we had, what Shankaracharya ji says as is Swadharma Parityaga and Pratishiddha Seva. That is what has come about him, right? So what are the, one of the things that we have to see throughout this is what are the things that we can learn from this particular episode. One is that, that of understanding how emotions can take us for a complete ride. Unless we are alert to them, unless we know that emotions are not me, I am the one who is, who can be totally in control of them, right? But here, what has happened? He has completely got lost in the sway of the emotions which came about. And then, and second is, even if whatever thoughts come as to, what could be the possibility of this further happening? That kind of speculation is not something that Arjuna has to get into at that point of time, right? That speculation of, rather than speculate what could be the outcome, what he has to be thinking is that what should be my move right now. So if these are the people I have to face, what should be my immediate action? Rather than speculating what all could happen if one person is killed or if the other is killed, right? Or if the war is won or if the war is lost. So therefore also Bhagavan further later on tells him, karmanyeva adhikaraste, right? Karmani eva adhikara aste, right? Your adhikara is only to do that duty which you are ordained for, not speculate on what could be the results of it. That result part of it, I will take care of it. That he's, clearly telling him. So, even as we go through these verses, so that there is a connect, to what will happen further, what Bhagavan will say. So, we'll just keep that in mind, so that we are able to, because in first chapter, sometimes, we lose track of what exactly is happening. So that we know what will come about in the next chapter, maybe in the immediate next chapter or maybe even in the later chapter. So here also Bhagavan is very clearly telling him about the karma phala, right? So, what one should be doing therefore is adhere to what karmas are to be done by us. What is the immediate measure right in my hand, right, is to perform my duties, right? That duty could be in various perspectives, where we say that, there is there are the different dharmas to be adhered to, right? There is the samanya dharma, as what are my general duties in my life, playing various roles, be it that of a son, be it that of a daughter, be it that of a mother, father, a teacher. Those duties that are ordained, I should be able to do it specifically, right? Then there is also the Vishesha Dharmas. What are Vishesha Dharmas? In some kind of special circumstances. Like right now, they are at war, right? So in war, whatever rules, regulations are applicable there, I should be able to perform them, right? So as a person on the battlefield, my duties will not be the same as my normal duties, right? As my general duties. On the battlefield, as per my rank, as per my position, I will be having certain duties, right? Also off of the battlefield, when the war is done for that particular day, I might have some other duties, right, where I will not be ordained to what was happening in the battlefield. So then there I have to perform that, right? So too there are those duties which are for that individual, where there is Vyakti Dharma, right? One particular individual, he will have, as an individual, he will have certain dharma. Then there is also Samajik Dharma, right? Where as a person who is living, or we might say that, the duties of a citizen, when I am part of a larger community base, then I have certain duties as per the totality. So be it, when I am the citizen of a country, then there are those rules and regulations or those laws which apply to me, which will be for the benefit of all, or which will be in accordance of, peace and harmony of all, right? So those have to be ordained in that way, right? So here also, of course, what is told is that, there is your Swadharma, and your Swadharma is dictating you in a certain way. But if you are not able to see that, that particular duty which you are supposed to do at that point, then you have to kind of shake yourself out of it and see, why am I not able to see what is right and wrong, right? And why am I trying to do something which is not mine? So later also, Bhagavan takes up this topic of Swadharma and also says, how it is that I can contribute to the larger goodness by doing that one particular duty that I am ordained to. Okay. And how if I am going away from my duty, how it will, cause issues, not just for me, but for everyone. Okay. So basically, here point is that when we are talking of duties are to be performed for a particular reason, right? Even if at that point, at that point of time, even if I am feeling uncomfortable, even if I feel that no, this is something that I don't want to do, but I am in that circumstance and I have to perform my duty in that particular way. So therefore, what is the best option, Bhagavan says, is to do your duty. But how you can do it better? How can you make it more inspiring for yourself? That he talks of in the Karma Yoga perspective, right? Where you can offer that duty towards the higher power, the higher altar, and in that way, you can be more inspired, you can give 100% of yourself and not bother about what will come as a result. The result itself will be that which will come as per what is best for you, right? What you are most deserving of. From whose perspective? From the totality perspective. And who is seeing that? That the Lord is seeing as the karma phala data, right? So that is that. So here also, when Arjuna is going on talking, right? And he is thinking that he is talking in the right perspective. But sometimes when we are thinking we are speaking in the right perspective, we are also not completely open-minded. We are only seeing one particular channel, right? Or we are only wearing one particular glasses by which we are seeing the world in one particular light. But there is someone who is seeing it from a more higher perspective, right? So here the guidance which Bhagavan will give later is in terms of what is best for Arjuna. And of course, from the perspective not just for Arjuna, but for us also, right? Because it is not just Arjuna for whom which this guidance is given, it is for everyone, right? So here also one might say that there are certain perspectives which were spoken of in terms of Atma Vidya. Like someone had asked in the earlier class, can you tell something about Atma Vidya? So that Atma Vidya will come on later on, right? Later on in the next few chapters. But here first is the first part of the story is understanding that Adhikari. Who is the Adhikari? The one who is eligible for the knowledge. Now, how is this person eligible? So, for that is this chapter 1, where we are understanding how this Arjuna, not only is he well equipped, he is also someone who has had a wide array of experience. And from his experience, it is not that he is talking blindly also. He is talking, his perspective is from one set of experiences that he has had. And therefore, he also talks of dharma. Later also chapters when we see, he says that we understand that he has some kind of knowledge about Vedas also. And therefore, he talks of it also earlier, later on in the chapters. And here, therefore, what Bhagavan is doing is He's just putting a character analysis for us to understand. And then further he will just give us sadhanas on how to deal with each of these perspectives that was put forth by Arjuna. Even though Arjuna seems right in his dharma perspective, it is only one perspective that he is putting. Whereas the totality perspective is seen, or the samashti perspective is seen by Bhagwan, and he is going to give solutions in that manner. So therefore in this chapter, Bhagwan is just listening to whatever Arjuna is saying and saying, okay, go ahead. And he has this kind of smile on his face, which he always has, but it is not neither to mock Arjuna nor to support him in any way, but just to listen. Okay, go ahead. You can go on speaking. Let me see how it goes. Right? So here in the 31st words onwards, is the analysis of who is this Arjuna and what are his beliefs. So after he puts down his symptoms, then he says, Nimittani cha pashyami viparitani keshava na cha shreyo nupashyami hatva swajanamahave. So now here is someone who was otherwise very positive, right? And now he is speaking as per how his mind is conditioned. So what is he saying? He's saying that I see these very bad kind of omens around us. Okay? It is not that the day has suddenly changed, or the sun has got covered because of the eclipse, right? Or suddenly the whole or it has started raining or something, nothing like that. But suddenly Arjuna is seeing different omens, and he is saying they are not good omens. And he says that I don't see anything good coming about by the killing that will happen in this battlefield. So definitely it is as it is said, as the mind so the man. So suddenly his mood has got overshadowed. Sometimes it happens to us, the day is good, but suddenly we open the window and we say, oh, it looks so dreary and cloudy, so today's day is not going to be good. Or you're so groggy or something is wrong and the glass falls or something happens, then you say that, oh, look, I know I got up on the wrong side of bed and things are not going to go good, right? And this is what Arjuna is speaking right now. It's as though when everything was going good, suddenly he is saying that things are not good at all, right? Then he says, Na kangshe vijayam krishna na cha rajyam sukhani cha kim no rajyena govinda kim bhogair jivitena va. So he is saying now what he doesn't want from this war, what is going to be the outcome, and what he doesn't want. Okay. So he actually speaking, what is he saying? So these are the things I don't desire from this war. So one is na kangshe vijayam, I don't want any victory. Na cha rajyam sukhani cha, I don't want the happiness or the joy of having one entire kingdom to myself. And he says, Kim no rajyena govinda, kim bhogair jivitena va. What is it that I am going to get by getting this kingdom, and this power and this authority? What will it bring, and what is the kind of pleasure or comfort that will come from it? Why? Because all these people will die. So how am I going to come to terms with this kind of a victory? So actually speaking, it is like how Gurudev says in his commentary. He says that when a wife or when a couple is fighting, right, and say the woman is hysterically telling, no, I am not, I am okay with him saying something, or I'm okay with, him coming late, etc. Right? So, but what she is telling in her hysteria is that, these points is what this person is, at fault with. So here also, what is Arjuna doing? Arjuna is saying that this, I am not expecting from this, from this war. By killing someone, I am not, I am not at all desirous of this. But actually, we understand what was his perspective in going into this war. What is he actually looking at as an outcome of this war? What is that? He definitely wanted to win. You can never say an ambitious, Kshatriya like Arjuna is going to say that I don't want to win the war. He definitely wants to win the war. And definitely the Pandavas had set out to have that kingdom because of the way the Kauravas had responded. So definitely he can't say that I don't want the kingdom. Nor that, what all other things will come with it. So whatever he is saying, actually he's actually acknowledging that these factors I was expecting as an outcome of this war, right? But though here he is telling it in a complete reverse way, that I don't need all this, right? But basically, he is showing that his agenda for the war was more towards towards gaining a complete victory over the Kauravas. And that is what was expected from the Pandavas also. They definitely wanted to avenge what had happened to them. They definitely wanted to avenge what had happened to Draupadi also. And therefore, it was no way that he didn't want to win the war. He definitely wanted to win the war. But suddenly, it is also said like this, that suddenly when he saw the array of warriors, he was suddenly doubting himself. Can I do it? Can I fight these people? They know me in and out, especially Bhishma and Drona. Will I be able to face them? So that, and then maybe even the fact that, their armed forces were smaller, that was also somewhere playing at him, right? Though he didn't want to voice that, but yes, all this was also, when we are faced with a certain situation, that which we might not have acknowledged as our shortcomings, suddenly they come rushing to us, right? And suddenly we feel that, oh, am I really prepared for this, right? Or am I really eligible? So therefore he is going into this, right? And he is going into various speculations as well. So here, suddenly what he is talking of and what might seem as, great vairagya, because he is saying, oh, I don't want any victory. I don't want any pleasures. I don't want that kind of, position or that dominance. So it is as though he has suddenly got, certain vairagya which has come about. And this is said to be, a smashan vairagya, or it is said to be the nimitta vairagya. What is nimitta vairagya? Just, a sort of renunciation which has come about, or a detachment which has come about because of the circumstances. Like one might say the grapes are sour, right? But here for Arjuna, he is saying that, oh, I don't want this. I don't want this. What use is it when people are not, people are not going to be there to enjoy it with me. This is what he is saying. And we might also see that, he is truly speaking in the right kind of way, right? Especially when we look at the further verses also, right? Where he says, येषाम् अर्थे काङ्क्षितं नः राज्यं भोगा सुखानि च त इमेव स्थिता युद्धे Prananstyaktva dhanani cha. So he is saying, no, for whose sake is this kingdom, this enjoyment, all the bhoga, all the sukhas that will come as a result of this victory, for whose sake they are. Ta imeva sthita yuddhe pranans tyaktva dhanani cha. For what is going to happen? Those who are there with me, they are willing to give their life, as though, on this battlefield, those who are present and those I am fighting with, having renounced their life and wealth, what then will I enjoy? Or whom will I enjoy with? Or for whose sake will this victory be? So he says that, why should I even covet any of their wealth even? Is it going to benefit me in any way? I will not be able to live by myself, or I will not be able to take into account all this, into consideration all this, that has come to an end for these people who are my kith and kin. So how will I then be able to enjoy all this? Do you think it is of any benefit to me? That is what he is saying. So who are these people for whose sake, he is willing to renounce all that? He says, Acharya pitarah putraha tathaiva cha pitamaha matula shvashura pautraha shala sambandhinas tatha. So who are they? For whose sake I should not be able to, I should not fight this war. They are my own teachers, my ancestors, my my sons, my pitamaha, the grandsire Bhishma, my fathers-in-law, various friends, those whom I studied with. Then there are those who are my in-laws, etc. All these people are the ones who are willing to give up their life in this battle. And if they are the ones who are going to be gone, if their blood is at stake, then what use is that kind of a victory? That kind of victory, what will it bring for me? No pleasure, neither any kind of position, because with whom will I celebrate anything then, right? So suddenly he has gone into this, into this kind of a melancholy, right? And then further he says, so we'll take the 35th verse along with 36 and 37. Etan nahantum ichhami gnatopi madhusudana apitrailokya rajyasya hato kim nu mahi krute nihatya dhatarashranah ka priti sya janardana papamevashrayed asman hatvetanatayinah tasmanarha vayam hantum dhatarashtran swabandhavan swajanam hi katham hatva sukhinasyama madhava. Okay, so in these verses, right, first is, clearly we are able to see earlier what did he do? Earlier he suddenly felt, completely hysterical, because he said all these people, they are going to die. So one is that he was very confident that he is going to be able to kill them. And then secondly he is saying that, but I am not going to be able to, though I can, but I am not going to be able to do this. Why? Because what is going to be the result of this? How am I going to face myself after this war? Because all these people will be gone. Even though, suddenly he has as though forgotten what all had transpired before this. How since his childhood he had been suffering, the jealousy of Duryodhana and others on that side. or how from time to time they were subjected to such kind of episodes where they had to leave that whole kingdom and go into forests, or live on bare minimums, or spent 1 year in hiding completely so that they are not discovered. And now suddenly he is saying, that, oh, they will die. So how will I be able to, come out of that grief, as though. So here this Arjuna, is clearly showing signs that he has forgotten his Viveka Buddhi. He has got so entrapped by certain moha, certain delusion of his emotions, that he has completely forgotten his Viveka. And Viveka is such, or the discrimination is such, which should not come under the sway of any kind of weakness. So despite a weakness, one should be able to see clearly what is right and what is wrong. But he has completely, lost it, you might say, over here. So here, he says that, so here he calls Bhagwan, what does he call him? He calls him Madhusudana, right? In the earlier verse where he says, Yesham arthe kangshitam naha rajyam bhoga sukhani cha ta imeva sthita yuddhe pranan tyaktva dhanani cha acharya pitarah putraha tathaiva pitamahaha matula shvashura pautraha shala sambandhinas tatha. Right? And even in the earlier verse he had mentioned. So here he is telling Bhagwan, you are that Madhusudana. Who is Madhusudana? The one who had his sway over the two demons, Madhu and Kaitaba. And another way of looking at it is the one who has overcome the Madhu, the sweetness, or has gone beyond that sweetness when it comes to relatives, even to see their reality in that. Right? So he is telling him, Bhagwan, that you are not coming under the sway of of the relationships. You are seeing something much beyond that, but I am not capable of that. I am seeing all the goodness that had come to me from them. So I am not able to reason how I can fight these very same people. Right? So he is saying that I am caught by my weaknesses, whereas you are in control of them, Bhagwan. So you see it and you give me the guidance. Basically he is pleading with him in that. And he is going, each verse, as though each step by step he is telling why he thinks that, going to war with the Kauravas, going to war with his kith and kin is not going to do him any kind of good. Right? So further he says that, Bhagwan, one is that these people, they have been in and out of my life. They have been part of my life since my childhood. And now suddenly to not be able to see them further because they will die. Because they will die, I will not be able to see. So, how do I then justify it? The victory that will come about, how will I be able to see? So that is what he is saying. So he says, when these get said, he says, Etanna hantum ichchami gnatopi Madhusudana apitrailokya rajyasya heto kimnu mahikrute. So, even in this lifetime, I don't wish to have this kingdom. What use is this kind of a kingdom? What then to say of, what will come about in the Trailokya? If you see if you feel there are any gains in the other three worlds, even, what use is that? So he's even kind of saying that, even if even if I am not victorious, if I die a warrior's death and I go, what will happen? Will I be able to live in that sukha? That sukha also I will not be able to be comfortable in. So he's kind of trying to justify in all ways, right? So he says here that, oh Bhagwan, these nihatya dharta rashtran निहत्य धार्तराष्ट्रान्नः का प्रीति स्यात् धनंजय सॉरी का प्रीति स्यात् जनार्दन पापमेवाश्रये अस्मान् हत्वेतान् आततायिनः. So here he says that killing these sons of Dhritarashtra, what kind of you think there is some kind of perverse pleasure I will get? No. Even though I see them as my opponents, but yet there's not going to be ever any kind of joy. So only what will come to me? Only some kind of papa will come to me. Why? It will become as though that sin was looking for an abode and that sin has come to me because I killed them. This is what I foresee. And then further he says, he calls them Atataina. Right? Atataina means what? Those who are themselves of some kind of sinful tendency. So he's calling Dhritarashtra, he's calling Duryodhana and others as those who have those who have the tendency to do some kind of wrongs, right? But he is not of that tendency. So, but by killing them, what will happen? It is as though he will become one Atataina. That is what he is trying to portray here, right? And here when he is talking of Papa, again he has wrongly understood or wrongly interpreted what Shastra is talking. And we say Papa is that, from Dharma's standpoint, if you are not doing that which is your Dharma, then that is a Papa. If you are going against that which is your Swadharma, that which is your ordained duty, then that is a Papa, right? Whereas if you are doing exactly how Dharma is saying, that this is what you should be doing. Like as a student, what should I be doing? As a student, I should be listening to what my teacher is giving, whatever knowledge my teacher is giving. I should be studying, and as per the rules and regulations of the institution where I am studying, I should be playing that role of a student. I should not go and do something totally contrary and say that, hostel rules are not for me. I should go, college days are for full freedom. So I should go around having fun. Forget about attendance, etc. Attendance someone else will take care of. Right? So basically that is not playing the dharma of a student. Or say suppose we are children, we are grown children of our parents, then our dharma is to take care of our parents, right? Not that we go against or even if our parents are not able to fend for themselves, it is our dharma because they have taken care of us. It is our duty to take care of them, nourish them the way they had nourished us during our childhood, right? Yes, I will take questions at the end of the session, okay? Someone had raised their hand, but I will take the question at the end, okay? So yeah, so basically here what we have to understand is from a dharma perspective, what is it that is a sin, right? Whereas here, what is Arjuna doing? Arjuna is saying that, if I fight them, then I am going to gain Papa. I am going to be subject to Papa, right? Which later on Bhagwan will tell him that no, you have interpreted wrong. Your dharma is to fight. And therefore you should fight, oh Arjuna. But he gives him clarity and then he tells him this. Right now, as was earlier said, he is allowing Arjuna to speak the way he is. So Arjuna is trying to say that, I know what is dharma and, what is karma, what is papa and what is punya. And also that, this is going to carry on forth for lifetimes. So if I do this, if I kill all these relatives of mine, what is going to come to me is sin only. Papa only is going to come here. right? But his interpretation is wrong, and that will come about later when Bhagwan presents his perspective, right? So then you might ask, how do I know what is right and what is wrong? So if we see, even though dharma is not something, immediately written out, it is dharma which makes the world go round, right? It is like an unseen law or an unseen way of governance which is there in the world, right? But for us humans, of course, there is the Vedas to fall back on as a book of guide, or like right now we are looking at the Bhagavad Gita. So even the Bhagavad Gita is also telling us what is right and what is wrong in performing my duties, in performing what is rightly ordained for doing certain kind of karmas that I have to do. Be it even charity, be it following certain rules in terms of my profession, right? So what comes with my duties, I will have to perform that, and that is what is right or wrong when it comes to my role in this world, right? So that is told, and of course what the constitution dictates, that comes as per that country's rules and regulations, right? So going by that, when it comes to Samaja Dharma, then I have to do as per what my country is telling, as what is put down in the rule books of my country. That is what I have to do, right? So therefore further, here Arjuna is, what is he doing? He's actually, instead of saying that, the Dhritarashtra and others are in the wrong, he in the end he is telling that, he is actually saying that, I should not kill them because why? Because they are related to me, right? Those who were otherwise the ones who are durbuddhi, now he is saying that, I will become the wrongdoer if I kill them. So he is actually going and defending them. So definitely, Bhagwan is saying that he has somewhere lost his way of channeling his thoughts. He is forgotten what exactly or why exactly he had come to the war field, and now he is trying to justify his reasoning. So here he further says, so in the 37th verse he says, Tasman narham vayam hantum dharta rashtran swabandhavan dharta rashtran swajanam hi katham hatva sukhinasyama madhava. So here he is calling Bhagwan as Madhava. So here he is saying, he is as though, he has gone step by step and he has tried to tell Bhagwan that, for this reason, I should not go ahead and fight this war and kill my kith and kin, kill these people who are the sons of Dhritarashtra, those who are my brothers. So he is now suddenly realizing, that they are my own brothers. So he says, Dhartarashtran swabandhavan. And then he says, not just that, swajanam hi, they are my own relatives are there. Swajanam hi katham hatva sukhinasyama madhava. Oh Madhava, how can I kill them and then live in any kind of happiness? How can I gain any kind of joy by doing this? Therefore, I should not kill them. Tasman narha vayam hantum. Therefore, we should not go for this war and we should not kill them. This is what he is told. So here again we see that he has built as though a case, and so that he sees that there is some kind of weakness in his case. Therefore each point he is further elaborating and telling that one is that they are all my relatives. One is that what will I gain from such a victory? One is that, if I don't win, what will happen? That kind of warrior's victory, I will not be able to even live in the heavens and enjoy that kind of a sukha by killing them or being against them. So therefore, now what should we do? We should not fight this war, right? And then he says, Yadyapete na pashyanti lobhopahata chetasah kulakshaya kritam dosham mitradohe cha patakam. So here, further he gives a very, to substantiate his case, he further gives very valid kind of points. But now we have gone past our time, so we'll take that up in the next session. Here again we see the depth of his, the depth of his knowledge and the depth to which he is thinking why this war is not in the right kind of circumstance. Maybe we have to rethink this whole thing. So here he says, so when he's looking at Krishna and he's saying, Madhava, oh Madhava, you have to see that, this whole overall picture, if you see, that what we are doing, it is not right. Why not just for now, but for generations to come? What will happen? Kulakshaya, there is going to be no further generations if so many people die. So are we doing the right thing by fighting this war? That is what he finally asks Bhagwan, right? Over there again earlier, when he has, O Janardhana. So that Janardhana name, basically wanted to just mention to you all, Janardhana means the one who takes away the Maya of delusion from his, from his devotees. He is the one who removes that Maya which has right now deluded us, right? So, but each time who is calling out these names? It is Arjuna only who is calling out these names, right? So earlier also he had called him Madhava, or earlier he had called him Madhusudana. So appropriately Veda Vyasji has put those names, because each of them, even Govinda, where Govinda is used, Govinda is the one who is in control of the senses, right? And here Arjuna has himself lost his senses, right? So it's very beautiful the way it has been put, each verse. I think in the next session mostly we will be done with this chapter. So if you have any doubts, etc., you can ask. I think one person had raised their hand. Do you want to ask the question? I don't know if the person is here. Okay. Yeah, Vikash. Hari Om.
Yes, Hari Om. Thank you very much. It was very useful and simple and very nice to understand. So I had two questions. One is, do we have a list of all these names like Govinda, Janardhana, Madhusudana and their meaning? Because if there is a ready reference, that will really help in understanding.
So what I would suggest is we have this book Holy Gita ready reference. If you go through, one is not just for the names, but otherwise also it's a wonderful book, and it is that which is coming in accompaniment with the Holy Gita itself. So it has all these kind of trivia also, where you are telling which name is meaning what. So that is given in these books also. Besides so many other things which are there, so many other questions also which particular verses are are those which we can take for keeping in our memory, right? So those verses which are essential to that particular chapter, they are also singled out. Then also the doubts that we might have regarding particular aspects of each of the verses, those are also put down. So you could definitely look at that book. Yeah, one more question you had, you said, yeah.
Yes, yes. See, I mentioned regarding the path of dharma and duty, and given some examples also. But in real life, what happens is certain situations are there wherein we really don't know what is the most appropriate path. Because if you take option A, there could be plus minus this. If you take option B, pros and cons of this. In both ways, you think if you don't want to create negative karma or harm anybody or create disharmony. But in both ways, there is some disharmony happening. So, what does Gita say? What's the best way to approach such a real life problem? Because Krishna is not always there to answer your question. So, what we do?
So one is that yes, Krishna is not always there, but actually he is always there. So for that we have to build our seeker strength. Our sadhana we have to strengthen. Then when that Krishna as our Antaryami is prompting us, then we will know what is right. Second is in our heart, or right, if you say it is mind, right. That which causes an agitation, right, that that decision where I experience an agitation, that definitely is not in the right. Where that my conscience is going to prick me, that decision is not in the right. That can be the immediate, that which unsettles me. That is definitely not towards dharma. Even if, sometimes we might have the right skill set for a particular thing, right? But that does not come under my duty purview. Then I should not go for it. Of course, it's difficult to, to understand that. But sometimes we fall and then we still realize that okay, fine, there I should not have done this, but it's done now, so I will go with what has come about because of that. Then that understanding, that here I should not have done this, right? Or that awareness, that should help me in make my further decisions. At least that clarity will come about through that experience. Of course, and then we'll see further on this also about dharma and adharma. It will further come also more elaborately in the other chapters. Then we'll have a look at that. Shall we close now? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Hari Om. Thank you. Hari Om.